Of the Laughter for All podcast. I am Comedian Nazareth, and thank you for joining us for another episode, 130. If who's keeping count, but it is 130 weeks together. Thank you for making us on the top podcast in comedy, not just in this country, but in the top 100 in other countries, the top 22 in this country. So praise God for that, and thank you. And I know it's called Laughter for All. You all know that. The name of the ministry, the company is Laughter for All. So, but do we bring comedians all the time? No, 70% of the time we do. Do we bring artists, models, singers, attorneys, you name it, whoever we can bring that I know can bless your life and can help you, can answer some of your questions, we'll bring them on the show. And today, I have a friend. I have a friend I've known since the early 90s. He's a great guy. You know how sometimes you have friends that you feel good that you know them. You feel good that you're like, oh, I know this guy. This is one of them that I go, yeah. When I think of that, I feel good about myself because he's a very accomplished I don't know. He's no longer a politician, but this man has a heart to help and to serve his state. Uh, so let me introduce you to my friend. His name is Curt Pringle. He's an American politician from the U.S. state of California. Even though he was born in Iowa, he came when he was very young and lived in Garden Grove, California, where I used to live. And I know few of my big fans are from Garden Grove, California. He's the last Republican to serve as the Speaker of the California State Assembly, as also the longest serving Republican Speaker in the last 51 years. He's the former mayor of Anaheim. Yes, if you're not from the state, people, Anaheim is where Disneyland is. So, someone who knows how to deal with it, the Disney company, my hat off to that man. And he's the former chairman of the California High Speed Rail Authority. Since leaving office, Pringle has operated a public relations and government affairs firm, Curt Pringle and Association. So let's bring my good friend, Mr. Curt Pringle, the Honorable Curt Pringle. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thank you. So nice to be with you.
It's funny how we stayed friends for a long. You remember the first time I think I met you, you were in the state assembly for the Garden Grove, right?
Well, Garden Grove, Anaheim, Westminster area, certainly. Yeah, this whole area.
And you did a fundraiser, and you had this funny comedian from the Middle East, and we became friends.
But I don't think you were the top headliner, though, Nazareth. I think you had about five. So you were about two or three down the list, weren't you? Or were you the headliner, the end comedian of the night? I know
no,
we did that about 4 or 5 years in a row. So you were there for quite a few.
yes, and I was still newer in that in the clean comedy business. I just became a Christian a year or so before that, so I wasn't really headlining yet. But and then we lost touch, and then all of a sudden I'm on the plane. I open a magazine, and right in the middle of the magazine, the 2 pages is the new mayor of Anaheim, Mr. Curt Pringle. So you were born in Iowa, moved to Garden Grove. Was your father in politics?
Oh, no, not at all. My father was a salesman, growing up in a town of people in Iowa. I was born in central Iowa, but I only lived there for about a year and a half. I like to say I'm an Iowan, though. It kind of makes people have a different opinion of you. So, I mean, my wife was born in Anaheim. So that was wonderful, but I was born in Iowa. And my dad was a salesman. So we moved to probably 5 different states before I was 5, and 5 years in Michigan before we moved to Chicago, and then we moved to California.
Wow. And what? So you went to Long Beach State. What did you study there?
I was a business major, business administration. Our family was in the drapery and dry cleaning business, actually. So when we moved to California, my dad set up dry cleaners and laundromats all over Southern California. And I mean, to put it in perspective, so he had the exclusive right to build dry cleaners and laundromats. But about the early 70s, maybe 1972, something happened that destroyed my dad's business. And that was apartments started putting laundromats in their apartment buildings. Before that, you'd go out to the coin laundry machine, a laundromat down the street. So all of a sudden, all of those laundromats my dad sold, he had to repossess. So he took so many of them back. So yes, we ran laundromats for a long time as a family,
Wow.
literally as a family. So
Wow. So you studied business, hoping you take over the dad's business, or just you knew you have a business mind that you wanted to do business.
yeah, I mean, you grow up in a small business atmosphere. That's what you want to be. I mean, loving your parents and wanting to emulate them and their success. That's where I wanted to be. And so I did go to Long Beach State, but I always had it in politics. I mean, it was, put it in perspective. 43 years ago, I ran city council in Garden Grove and lost. So that was my first entry into politics. And also, no, I lost many times before that too, but the first time I publicly lost. So that was my start in politics.
When you won the first time as a state assembly, was that fearful? Was that like, oh no, now I have to do what I promised, or I have to do something to help people, or that was always in the back of your head?
Well, so the first time I ran, or the first time I was elected to office was the state assembly in 1988. So my assemblyman from Central Orange County ran in the primary and died the next day. He died the day after the June primary. His name was Dick Longshore, a very decent and good guy. And then the Republican Party had an opportunity to select a replacement nominee on the ballot. And they, fortunately, out of 10 candidates, they selected me. So part of it, I don't know, maybe everybody else doesn't go through what I went through, but you're always insecure, right? So you get elected to the state legislature. I had been in Sacramento one time before in my life before I was elected to the assembly, and my assumption was that everybody progresses. The best and brightest get elevated to higher and higher office. But once I got there, I realized that's not the case. That there are people all across the spectrum in terms of the really, really brilliant people to people less so. And my fear, of course, being a relatively insecure person in that context, was everybody else is smarter than me. So how can I get anything done? And realized I certainly was able to, hold my own and get things done in Sacramento.
Now, were you married back then, Curt, when you won?
Was I married? Oh yes. I mean, my wife was had the political science degree in the family from Biola. I had a
Uh-huh.
business degree. So she was much more focused on political awareness than I probably was.
So she was supporting you in running for, because there's a lot of stress in what you're doing, right? I mean,
Oh no, there
being
is. I mean, think about this. I was 29 when I was first elected to the state assembly. We had a 2-year-old son, and our daughter, who Nazareth, was
yeah.
not born until the first year into my service in the state assembly. So my wife was home. Legislators in Sacramento from Sunday night or Monday morning all the way through Thursday. So here I had 2 kids under the age of 3, my poor wife home alone with them, and I was trying to be a fancy legislator. So that was a great burden on the family. So
And you were the Speaker of the House, the State Assembly in California as a Republican, which is you're the last one, right?
yeah, so I think you used a statistic that I shared with you once. If you're the last one, there's a lot of years that continue to grow between that. So I was the longest serving Republican speaker now, I think, in the last 54 years in California. But back then, I mean, just put it in perspective, in this election cycle, when they're talking about the red wave that Republicans may win a lot, in 1994, that is when we were short of a majority by 8 seats in the 80-member assembly, okay? And
Mm.
we won 8 seats. Republican netted an additional 8 seats. And that's what propelled Republicans to a majority in 1994 in the state assembly. But also, that's when Newt Gingrich won his majority in Congress. And those types of things don't happen often, but I think they might even happen this year.
You think it will happen? You think the Republicans have a chance in California, and not in I mean in the country maybe, but in California?
Yeah, California's changed dramatically since 1994. But I think on the federal level, and really when the tide comes in and lifts boats, and people kind of have a change in how they vote, meaning they vote for different things. I think parents are going to vote for education policy, and parents are going to be focused on a lot of different things than they may have been naturally over the last couple election cycles. I think a more conservative vote's going to be very strong this year. Yes.
Wow. Now, what is the Speaker of the State Assembly of the House? What do they do? What I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not a political person, but what do you do? What did you do as a Speaker of the House of the State Assembly?
Yeah, I mean, California has two legislative bodies, the state Senate and the state Assembly. There's 80 people in the state Assembly, and there's 40 people in the state Senate. So they operate separately, right? And they have a leader in each of those. You have, it's called the Senate President Pro Tem is the leader of the Senate, and you have a Speaker of the Assembly. So really in that regard, you oversee who sits on which committees, to who sits in which offices, how much staff they have, and really which bills and legislative issues progress through your respective house. So it's a tremendous amount of power. I mean, Willie Brown, who served as Speaker of the Assembly for 14 and a half years in California, he called himself, I mean, some people may remember Willie Brown, others may not. He called himself the Ayatollah of the Assembly. And his point was, he was all powerful and controlled everything.
So now, I know you left there, you became the mayor of Anaheim. I mean, Anaheim, people don't understand it. That's a huge city. That's a lot. You have Disneyland. So you had to deal with Disney people?
Yes, all the time.
Do they get special privileges in Anaheim?
Yeah, I don't think they necessarily get special privileges. I mean, part of it first off, let's be honest, the company's changed tremendously, right? Not only from how an amusement park in Anaheim operates, but how this huge international conglomerate corporate structure operates. So not too many years before I became mayor of Anaheim, before 2002, there was a guy who was the president of Disneyland. So those definitions are really all the assets in Anaheim, the hotels, the retail, the parks. You're a president of Disneyland. There was a guy there by the name of Jack Lindquist, and he was there for many years. He was appointed to that position by Walt Disney. And then after he left, a fellow was the president of Disneyland by the name of Ron Dominguez. His family owned the farm where California Adventure is now. And then slowly the company became much more corporate. And these presidents who came in were much more corporate oriented, and they had a greater responsibility in addressing the bottom line, but they were only in those jobs for a couple years. So you have seen a kind of shift from people who were grounded in the community of Anaheim and Orange County and kind of changing what their perspective is. And they are president of the company for the Anaheim Disneyland component for only a couple years, and then they move on. So like in any corporate structure, as it matures, you kind of have a different perspective. And I think we see that across the board in a lot of the Disney operations.
Okay. There's a question, and I'd like to when I get the question, I'll ask what bill are you most grateful for passing in the assembly and getting enrolled?
That's an interesting question because, in fact, it's probably somewhat disappointing to most people. I got elected. I was a small business person. I worked in a family business. We were in the dry cleaning business, and then we moved into the drapery and window covering business. And Pringle's Draperies is still in operation. My sisters and my dad are still there. My brothers-in-law still work for the company. I don't, because I made a deal. Once I got elected to the legislature, they better figure out how to do it without me, and that's all wonderful. But I came with that balance, and and maybe part of what we can talk about today, Nazareth, is the value of understanding when we vote for people, where they came from and what values they bring. So I brought a value of a small business person that fought different government agencies like the Air Quality Management District that was really harsh on small businesses like dry cleaners. And I was just actually looking a couple days ago at different bills I authored, and there's a couple years there in 1993, 94, that probably half the bills I authored that passed into law really dealt with how small businesses deal with these regulatory burdens that are brought on by the state and regional governments. And, nothing big and fancy, but things that really affect exactly today how small business is going to be consumed and eaten up by government. And the power of government is great. I mean, I think I authored the largest tax cut in the history of California at the time in 1997. It was $1 billion tax cut, and also a realignment of the state courts to have the state government fund state courts instead of counties funding state courts. And there are a number of bills like that, but that's part of the process. I was one that was focused on small business and business operation, the regulatory and tax burden of small businesses. So primarily, everything I authored dealt with those areas.
Now, as the mayor of Anaheim, what's your proudest moment as the mayor of Anaheim?
Well, actually, when I ran in 2002 and I served to 2010, one of the big focuses I had is Anaheim is a big city. Anaheim, if we see our communities like they were 40 years ago, we're going to be in a bad position in terms of addressing law enforcement issues and protecting neighborhoods, protecting the peace within our community, addressing some of the new needs within our community. I mean, Anaheim is a urban city, like it or not. There's some beautiful suburban neighborhoods, and that's great, and we should protect them. But if you don't look at the city as a big city, you're going to miss some of the needs and address some of the concerns that are there and will be there if they're cast to the side of the road and ignored. So really, one of the big focuses I had is how do you really bring Anaheim into the current future in the 2000s, as I was mayor in 2002. And a lot of that has to do with addressing housing needs. I mean, if you go around Anaheim Stadium now, you'll see that the areas known as the Platinum Triangle, and really our focus there was how do you bring about residential development in an area that could absorb it and not impact single-family neighborhoods and people living in the areas that they currently enjoy. So how do you build housing and build housing opportunities for people who live and work in Anaheim, but not negatively impact the overall community? So yes, the Platinum Triangle was one of my areas of greatest concern.
Do you get like heat from people who used to have their homes and nice homes, and now you're coming and bringing, like condominiums and residential, small, apartment buildings and stuff? Is that a problem? Do you get heat from these people?
Well, I think a lot of people are concerned about growth and change in every way. So how do you do it is really, I think, part of the concern. So if you look at like downtown Anaheim or many of the neighborhoods, a lot of the older homes that become a little more dilapidated, I think in times past, they look to tear down those houses and build apartments. It doesn't even matter how big they are, let's say 6 units, but all of a sudden that changes the character of that neighborhood. And even though I'm a big housing advocate and I want to support additional housing in almost every city, should think about how to grow housing. There's smart ways to do it. You don't harm existing people's neighborhoods. You find, commercial area, particularly shopping centers, to be honest. I mean, the way retail and commercial operations are moving forward, every single person who's watching today is buying a lot of goods online. And if they buy goods online, they probably get a pretty good price. It gets delivered to their house. It's convenient. But the shopping center at the corner is less and less important to them. And in that case, some of those areas could be developed into a higher density use on a major street away from people's single family homes. So I think that
when you were in office in politics, you helped a lot with homelessness. You put a stab, you took a stab on it. You really helped. What do you think if you're today in office or in the California political scene? How can you solve the homelessness issue?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. But really, when I left office in 2010, homelessness was nowhere near as severe it is today. I mean, it's very severe, very impactful. I mean, there's even estimates that 75,000 people in the city of Los Angeles are homeless, living on the streets. I mean, it's pretty outrageous. But so I wouldn't say in any way I deserve any credit or really did much of anything at all when I was mayor to address homelessness. But today is different. For example, in Anaheim, I think the current mayor, Harry Sidhu, and so many nonprofits and other organizations are doing great things. I mean, if anybody lives around Orange County, you can remember just a few short years ago, you'd drive by Angel Stadium and you'd see the homeless tents along the river. And that became a magnet of people, not only from Orange County, but around Southern California. Let's go and live there. And how do you address that? Well, you live by state laws and you live by all the judicial restrictions. But it really did take, one, the mayor at the time, Harry Sidhu, when he stepped up, but also working in partnership with nonprofits, and in many cases, Christian nonprofits. You know Nazareth. My daughter is the chairperson of the Orange County Salvation Army. And the Salvation Army, over and above so many other organizations, I'll tell you, I'm extremely proud and honored to work with a group like the Salvation Army of Orange County, because they had a drug and alcohol center in Anaheim for 30, 40 years. And those 170 beds, they required people to make a 6-month commitment. It's a faith-based program where you work very clearly to try to get someone to turn their whole life around and focus on, something bigger than them in terms of their God and the value of Jesus in their life. That's what the Salvation Army has done and continues to do for a long time. But during this homeless crisis, they stepped up and said, a portion of our property over here, we'll put in 200 beds for emergency shelters to get people right off the street. And then 3 other facilities in Anaheim did the same thing, 200 beds. And once that was done, then the courts allowed Anaheim to clear the tents on the riverbed, get people out of city parks, because they had places for those folks to go. And really the whole idea of homelessness, let's talk about that, is you got to get people off the street, which is you have to have emergency shelters, but those emergency shelters should not be a long-term solution for anybody. Figure out what the individual problem is, drug, alcohol, or mental health issues, which is the majority of issues people face who are homeless. Get them through that program. Many of them, if not most of them, even under the best programs, will fail and they'll have to start all over again. But that's how human nature is. And then once they recover, you got to get them into some type of more traditional housing with supervision where they can live on their own and have a job. And I think those are the steps, not just one. Some people say, oh, just get them off the street and they'll be fine after that. That's not the case. You got to go through the rehabilitation, and then you've got to figure out how to get them back into society, paying taxes, having a job, and reuniting with their family. And I think there are so many examples of doing good in California. It's not just one solution, it's many. But the one thing I know now through the pandemic, I hope we all realize this, it's not a matter of money. There has never been more money put into homeless solutions ever in the history of the world than we have seen in the last couple of years in California, in terms of billions upon billions of dollars spent. And just spending money doesn't solve the problem. It's all those other pieces, so that one step leads to the next.
Can someone say, because that's the average Joe would say, oh, the ones on the street are the drug addicts that don't want help. Is this true or not?
I think there's a lot of truth to that, but that's not the whole truth, right? I mean, if, whatever it is, 30, 40, 50% are people who with addictions. There's people with mental health, but by the way, people on addictions for a period of time move into mental health challenges. And there are certainly people that have economic challenges or domestic violence issues. But by and large, the majority of folks are people who have drug and alcohol dependency issues that lead to mental health challenges.
If you were the governor of California right now, which you should have continued and ran for it, what do you do about this inflation thing and all this going on right now? How can people are leaving California, especially the conservative? What would you do different?
Yeah, well, those are 2 or 3 questions. I mean,
okay.
No, but be honest, I don't think a local state can necessarily control inflation. That's the craziness on the federal side, when gasoline prices and food prices and supply chain issues are all at the point they are, those are national problems that need national solutions. And right now we're not receiving those. But the flip side of why are people leaving California, it's the tax burden is huge. The regulatory burden is huge. The ability to raise your kids, without a mask and let them go to school. I mean, I lost 2 employees in the last 2 years to Texas. And the main reason, simple. They wanted their kids to be able to go to in-person education without wearing a mask. 2 young families left for Texas for that reason alone. And good heavens, there couldn't be a better reason to say, I want to take care of my kids, right? I want a good learning environment. But the problem is those are solutions we should figure out and make sure we address, and make sure families and parents find a safe haven in California schools, be they public or private or charter certainly. And that's where the leadership of the state just totally misses the boat, in my opinion, as they do with taxes ever increasing, or regulation on small business, of which the majority of small businesses that are starting up are from minority owners, people who want to have a start in life, and all of a sudden we hit them upside the head with greater and greater regulation. I mean, those are the challenges of California.
Now, what do you say to a family that's like contemplating, should I stay in California? Should I go? What do you think the future here in the state of California?
Well, in fact, that's one of my wife doesn't bring that up as much anymore. I mean, she's a Hallmark Channel wife, so she asked me probably a couple years ago. It was probably once a week. Can we just find a Hallmark town and move to the Hallmark town? You know what I mean? And I don't know necessarily if there's Hallmark towns anymore, but they sure are nice to see on TV. But I don't want to give up on the state. If people who want to improve the state give up on the state, then the state will even degrade further. I think we all have to take our place, become more educated, and care about who are our leaders, and get involved in local city and school district activities so our voices are heard. And there's plenty of people who believe like us, but they have to make sure they're heard.
What do you say to a young person listening or watching right now going, I want to get into politics? What do you recommend to him? How few steps that will help?
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of people say, how did I get involved in politics, And the answer is easy. I was in Boy Scouts, and to get the citizenship and the community merit badge, you had to attend so many local government meetings. And I went to Garden Grove City Council meetings, and I went there for whatever it was required to get my merit badge. And then from that time on, I said, you know what, I kind of like this. And I attended city council meetings for probably 5 or 6 years on a regular basis. I don't think I missed one in 5 years.
Wow.
But I was kind of a goofy kid, and I liked that stuff, and I cared about my city, and I learned about my city, and I got involved. So I think if I were to share with someone who just wanted to get involved in politics or understand these things better, attending meetings, participating, getting on a local government commission, all of those things are available to you. And I think it's important to be educated before you think you can lead. And a lot of people today think, oh, I'm going to jump out to be the leader because I have all these ideas. It's also good to understand what you're leading.
That's good. I have a question, and I know normally in my podcast we don't talk about politics whatsoever, but this today is the perfect exception. Mr. Pringle, a question from Michael Ramirez. They say if Roe versus Wade is overturned, that California will be a sanctuary state for those who want an abortion. What are your thoughts on this?
I think Michael's probably right. I mean, one, those of us who have been pro-life our entire life and all of our political life, the opportunity for Roe versus Wade to be overturned is a good thing. And then the question is, addresses the state. And then every state legislator is going to have to face those issues. I do believe in California with this governor and this current legislature, they are extremely pro-choice and extremely, I mean, if you look at even some most recent legislation that talk about at birth or soon thereafter, the decriminalization of taking of that baby, it's kind of scary. But I do believe in people. And if all of a sudden legislators in California were fully responsible for making those decisions, I think people would be much more aware and concerned about the people they elect, particularly across the ethnic community spectrum. It's just not one community or another that respects life. There's a large population in many communities that do. And I think if in fact what we're seeing turns out that Roe versus Wade is overturned on the federal level, then yes, every single state will have that opportunity to debate this issue much more clearly. And I believe even in California, we may be able to push back a lot of that ultra pro-abortion perspective.
Wow. Now, what scares you, Mr. Pringle? What scares you personally?
The lack of information available for people, the lack of understanding of people in how their government operates and how to get things done, and just the fact we would be following along with what certain leaders push us towards, as opposed to understanding things on our own and finding places where we get information on our own. And there has been, without question, an elimination of the news media in California. I mean, I'll admit, I watch Fox News every night. I don't watch the local news at all. I do read the Register every day, but virtually none of the articles, or very few, are written by local reporters. They're all written by national media and brought on to the newspaper. So we're getting less and less what's happening, for example, here in Orange County or in my city, be it Anaheim or Garden Grove or any individual city in Orange County. We don't have that connection and awareness. So it makes it awfully hard for someone who doesn't live in the political or public realm to understand exactly what's happening in their community so that they can be involved.
Now, as far as I have to be, when you were the mayor, did the Angels win the World Series when you were a mayor, or after that? Or
no, but I want Michael to think I was, because under that scenario, not only was I, so the Angels won the World Series in October of 2002. I became mayor in December of 2002. But when they had their ceremony at the White House, because they were the world champions, I was the mayor then, so I got to sit front row. So that's all I want people to, remember. And those people who like the Angels or like the Dodgers, I will tell you, I went to the first World Series game. I was a mayor. I wasn't elected yet, and I was in, the Diamond Club. I had nice seats, and I was going through the buffet line, and who was right in front of me was Tommy Lasorda. So
wow.
I introduced myself to Tommy Lasorda, and I haven't ever said this before, Nazareth, so I guess I'm going to get myself in trouble. I introduced myself to Tommy Lasorda, and I said, in 2 months, I'll be mayor of the city of Anaheim. Yes, I was a little cocky. I said, yes, I'll be mayor of Anaheim, but I'll still bleed Dodger blue. And he signed the back, and he said, that's wonderful, kid. Very nice. So that's my Tommy Lasorda embrace as I became mayor of Anaheim. So.
Now, if anybody who walks into your beautiful office, they'll see the big Ducks T-shirts and the Ducks memorabilia. You're a big Ducks fan, huh?
Yes, our family is. My son and to a certain extent my daughter kind of drug us into being hockey. It wasn't that much of a hockey fan growing up at all, but because of the movie, The Mighty Ducks and things like that, it was the right age for my son. So we went to many, if not most, of the Anaheim Ducks games, and season ticket holder, and was there. So the Ducks won the championship in 2007, and I think Michael was trying to jab me earlier, saying he likes the Kings over the Ducks, and the Kings are in the playoffs now, and the Ducks are not. But what I have on those Kings fans is the first team to ever win the Stanley Cup next to the Pacific Ocean was the Ducks. So whatever the Kings do from now on, it doesn't matter that we were first. But with that regard, I thought we'd be the first in 2003, but we lost to the New Jersey Devils. And I'll just tell you one story. I did fly back to New Jersey for the seventh game of the playoffs between the New Jersey Devils and the Ducks, 3-3. All of these non-hockey fans are now going to board and turn off to, maybe Joe Rogan podcast or something. But there's a guy behind. So I go into the seats, and I did use the restroom, and then I was late to my seats. So the other couple that we took, they had Duck jerseys. I tried to not wear a Duck jersey just because I was afraid I'd get beat up or something. So the people we were with had Duck jerseys on, and all the fans around said, they were told, don't get mad at us. The mayor of Anaheim will be sitting right here in a minute. Sure enough, when I came in, all the people around me booed. And a guy about 3 rows up, he had a stick on the end was a big New Jersey Devils flag, and he was waving it. But on the end of that flagpole was a rope tied in a noose, and there was a duck with his neck through the noose. So he would wave this around, and every time he did, he would drop it down so the duck would slap me upside the head. So all through the game, it was just a stuffed duck, but still, I got the message that I was not rooting for their team, and that was okay. And we lost in Game 7, sadly, but we came back to win in 2007 and win the Stanley Cup. So.
Well, you're in New Jersey. I mean, anything can happen there. They're not known for being the nicest. But what brought you to Christ? Was it your family you just followed, or you had your own crossroads with the Lord Jesus?
We grew up in a Christian household, had a Christian family. We attended the Garden Grove United Methodist Church every week. That's where I met my wife. Her family attended there too. That's where we were married. And to this day, my father, who's still living, and my wife's father, who's still living, even though our mothers have passed, they both still attend the same church. So it's, kind of build up in an institution. But to be honest, I think we grow in our, faith foundation and who we are. And probably since COVID, it's been a lot easier and more focused in terms of participating in a number of Bible studies, really getting involved in my church, Influence Church in Anaheim Hills. We have a house in the desert, and we attend Champion Life Church in Palm Desert area. And both those churches are so fulfilling and great, with great pastors each. And, it's, for me, it is not being content with how your life and how you grew up, but how you search now and how you find what you need. And over the last couple of years, I know my wife and I both feel that way. We have found even a reawakening of our faith in the relationships we have.
You're a philanthropist. You're very generous and everywhere. I just want to share a story. We were in last year, the year before, we were in Maui for a conference. And we went, my wife and my kids, and we went to this nice restaurant. And when it was time to pay, and the waiters go, nope, the bill was taken care of. I go, who did that? She goes, Mr. Pringle took care of that. I mean, that's very generous of you. But you also support the event we're doing in Anaheim, for the the Laughter for All crusade. What do you tell someone who's going, you know what? Do you think I can make money in this lifetime and age? What should I invest in? What business should I be in? What do you recommend in this world we live in today?
Yeah, I don't know, because I don't know necessarily what your question is, but I will answer it that I think it is, and that is that first off, you better enjoy your life. I don't put us here to go through the drudgery of work, right? Go through the enjoyment of work, be excited about it every day. And if you're in a job that's not exciting or fun or entertaining, I mean, I'm kind of ADD, so I have to do fun things. You can ask, Gary Slater how I operate in kind of context as he watches in, a longtime friend. But I think you have to enjoy your life. That's what God wants us to do, not drudge through it. Really, over the last, I talked about kind of this greater refocusing on our faith. It really also has been a greater refocusing on our tithing and engagement in our church community, and has brought so much more fulfillment in a lot of ways. So, the last couple of years, everybody finds different things through the pandemic life that we have been able to hone and focus on, and I certainly have found that.
Now, how about what you're doing right now? You left office. You made Anaheim a great city, and I see your work when I drive and all that. But what you started Curt Pringle and Associates. What do you do? What does Curt Pringle and Associates do?
Well, I do like the fact you said, made Anaheim great again, so that's very nice. And you look
You
at those,
did. You did.
exactly. So, I mean, I have a consulting firm and someone who knows government and understands also in our firm, we spend time trying to help people maneuver through government, be it in terms of building things, entitlement is what it's called, moving through the planning and development process, to building, public support for things, both on level as well as on the private level. We probably have about 5 or 6 government clients that want to be able to communicate better with the public and get things done. Do some lobbying. Large corporate clients that want to do business with a lot of government entities. And because of my experience and engagement, I get this role of providing strategic advice to companies in the transportation and housing government sector. So I know that's a lot of gobbledygook and stuff, and people look at it and say, I have no idea what the guy just talked about. But, in a nutshell, that's what we do.
Do you think someone in California can afford a house now, or can afford to live here, or what can be done about that?
Yeah, that's pretty tough. I mean, the bottom line is what can be done about it is you got to build more housing. So,
Mm,
I have certainly found a lot of people who have things in terms of a beautiful house and beautiful neighborhood are somewhat cautious and concerned about building anything additional. But what I found as I was mayor of Anaheim is, we're dependent on the tourism business. Okay, that well over 50% of the budget in the city of Anaheim comes from tourism, be it the bed tax or retail sales visitors to Anaheim, and that's the city of Anaheim's business model, as everybody see from the outside. Yet if there's
mhm.
those people who work to, serve food or be maids in hotels or all the other hospitality jobs, you're not making a lot of money. So if
Right.
folks in Anaheim think those people should live in uh, Riverside County or San Bernardino County because housing may be a little less, the point is they can't afford to because they're not making enough money in their job to do that. So where they're living is really around the Anaheim area. So bedroom apartments that were built for maybe 1 or 2 people now have families of 5 in them. 2 bedroom apartments have 2 families. Or even the house next door to my sister at the corner of Brookhurst and Palma. It's a 3 bedroom house, has over 15 people living there, 3 separate families. So when people talk about, how do you address this quote housing crisis, it's not saying how do we bring more people to Orange County or to California for that matter, but how do you address the needs of people that are already here that are working in our community? And I think it's really something that sadly a lot of folks who have homes or wealthier people think, okay, I don't want to build anything more. I don't want to dilute what our community is. But what's being missed is a lot of those people at those economic levels and such live in our community already. And I think there's great value to address the needs of people who are here. And that's why I'm a big advocate for smartly and properly and addressing the housing needs and building additional housing opportunities for people who live here in our communities already.
In your last year in office, God put it in my heart and an Iraqi lady to start Voice of the Refugees in Anaheim, which is a nonprofit. And we've served over what well, now 2,000 families. Right now, we're dealing with the Ukrainians and the Afghanis. We're trying to help. But one other thing, I mean, the government gives them this apartment stuff, but some of them we can't find places, so we have to send them out to different. They go to to past Riverside and all that. You're right. They can't afford to live in Anaheim, even though that's the second largest population of Muslims and Middle Easterns, which is attracts them from overseas to come to Anaheim because they know if you go to Iraq, they know about Anaheim, they know about Dearborn, and they know about Anaheim. So you're right. They come here and they can't afford any housing, but so that's awesome. Do you think if your daughter wants to run for office, would you support
I would. My wife wouldn't.
her? Your wife wouldn't.
I think my wife, would say she cares about my daughter more than I do, so she would never want to put her through that kind of life. But I think I know my daughter well enough; she could battle through any of those battles and come out on top. So, yeah, just between us, I'd rather have her produce more grandchildren in the near term than worry about running for office. So.
What do you do for fun when you're other than the Ducks games? What do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? That's crazy. I mean, there's probably three things is all. One, whenever we can be with the grandkids, that is the top priority. But we don't get to do that much because our grandkids are awfully busy. I love to cook, and I do a lot of cooking for friends. And I'm still in my office. That's what you see here. This is not my house. This is my office. But I did build a kitchen here because I like to make meals for people here. And I have different dinner parties here where I think in our current life, we don't spend time breaking bread with people from diverse points of view and perspectives and share a home cooked meal. So I'll do my best to make a halfway decent meal for them. And other than
What's your favorite dish? What's your favorite dish that you're proud of that you did? The Curt Pringle dish. What would that be?
There's not one single notable dish. So, but if you want me to do a Middle Eastern dish for you, I can do great lamb chops. I like the lamb chops with all of the different Mediterranean components from there's a great orzo dish that I like to put with that, and sabuli and hummus and all of the components. So I'll work on that sometime for you, but only if you bring the rest of your family to have a little more enjoyment. So.
Because I did a Bible study at your office and I didn't see any food. No, I'm just kidding. There was baked goods, but that's Alan Goodwin said that point about the housing doesn't seem to be made often by the Republican Party and seems like a missed opportunity. Affordable employee housing, which you addressed, which is good.
No, I do think, let's be honest, some people are just focused on what the public wants to hear, and a lot of people don't want to help develop the public's knowledge of those issues. So you can't just say, okay, I have 10 neighbors that oppose this, so that's how we should stand. I mean, there was an affordable house no, that's not true. There was a senior living project we were helping in Anaheim Hills, and there were about 15 neighbors that complained about it, and 4 council people voted against it. It was a high-end, beautiful place for senior living, but people who are elected office oftentimes just hear those 15 voices as opposed to hear the 15,000 people in the area, or for that matter, the 250 people who had signed up to live in this project. They don't hear those voices. They only hear the folks that attend the meeting. And all the folks online, the question is, do you attend public meetings? Do you have your voice heard, or do you just let somebody else speak for you? And if you agree with my point of view or not, you just can't let somebody else speak for you. And with that, I think Matt decided you would leave. Why would that be?
No. Just the camera change. My camera cord just went. I'm sorry. Remember when I was in your office, you told me a wonderful story about an interaction with a pastor that he was against what you're trying to do. Do you mind sharing that story? Is that okay? Remember that story about
changed to protect the innocent. There was a project in Anaheim that it was an old supermarket. I mean, how many people know of supermarket chains that are no more? in California or around the country, right? I mean, grocery stores used to be prevalent, and it's like gas stations, one on every corner. But just because of the cost of those supermarkets, the low margins that they have, so many of them went out of business or consolidated and are owned by one. So there were a number of old grocery store sites that were closed down, and you had homeless activity there. You had a lot of problems, drug use and stuff, and not many people monitored these old supermarkets. I mean, drive down now your street, you'll see commercial sets that are changing. The question is, what direction do they go? Well, one affordable housing builder who wanted to build family apartments, beautiful family apartments. You go buy them today on Lincoln Avenue, and they're beautiful. It's not a gray box of poor people. It's a beautiful home for good people to live that has proper enforcement, no drug activity, nothing like that. But they bought it, they were building this. And among the folks who were opposed to the project was the pastor of the church that was directly behind it. And he came to the podium and complained about, people in apartments will be looked down on the sports field of church where the kids from the school at the church will be playing, and how terrible that would be. And I just said, well, these will be families, potential parishioners of yours. And he said, well, it wouldn't be good that they could look down at the kids in the playground. And I just said, I would assume that would be your responsibility to build a bridge to them and have them join your church and have a part, as opposed to you try to stop them from living here. And I think I overstepped my bounds. And a few years later, I ran into that guy, very decent, lovely man. He came up to introduce himself and say, remember, you chewed me out at that one council meeting over the mic in public. I said, well, I do apologize. I didn't mean to embarrass you that way. He said, no, but you were right. That's a beautiful building. The people in that building are beautiful, and they're contributing to his church. And I guess it's kind of the bigger picture of, we can all be fearful of what might happen, as opposed to making work and improving things to the way we want them to happen. And I think that pastor realized that.
I have a question from Alan Goodwin. He said, we have had significant Republican losses in Costa Mesa for the reasons you cited. Where do you see the best leadership for the party coming from at present?
I think on this comment line on the side of my screen, I don't think there's any single identified place, right? I think we all have to figure out where we want to be involved, be it in Costa Mesa or in Anaheim, or even poor Michael in Los Angeles with that king problem he had.
Azusa.
But the point of the matter is, I started out as a 16-year-old kid going to Garden Grove City Council meetings and cared about my community. And once you care about your community, that's what we're seeing with all these parents in Virginia. They're being vocal. They're standing, and they're being strengthened by their neighbors, fellow parents, fellow people who are concerned about the improvement of their community and neighborhoods and schools. That's what you got to do. That's what this country is about. And in fact, I think everybody who's watching Nazareth, instead of, he's much more entertaining when he has comedians on than this discussion.
No. This is very educational. We need to learn that.
All right, then I'll stop right there, because I don't want to take the humor away.
No, what did you wrote a book, right? Have you? I remember that, right?
It's let me see here. It's not very fancy, but basically, I had to pick one up. At my age, when I left being mayor, we did a number of things. So I just wrote a little book that says City Initiatives That Work. And my main reason for doing it is so I'd remember them. Because I moves on from where I'm at, as opposed to, okay, yeah, I'm not touting everything I did. So the nice person who asked what was the most significant legislation I passed, well, there's hundreds of things, but that's not where I focus on. The things that happened in the past, but where I can go from here. But I had to I had to write them down. And yes, I did a self-publishing. No, there's no way anybody can get a copy of it because it's not in multiple hardback versions. But the point of the matter is, I really did want to have a place where, and I buy those books and I send them every time people get elected to the city council in Orange County. I write nice notes saying congratulations. Here's a few ideas I had. Please steal them all, or steal whichever ones you want that makes sense for your city, because I want people to be thinking about what they can accomplish when they get elected to office. Anymore, I mean, the number one question, if you're talking to somebody who wants to be a city council person, ask the question, what are you going to do when you get elected? And if they just say, well, I'm really going to be good for the people, or I'm smart, right? Oh, throw them aside. If they say, these are the issues I'm concerned in, and this is how I think I can solve a problem, then those I like to embrace, even if it's not perfect to my philosophy. At least they're thinking about how they use, God's franchise. And that's how I view elected office. God gave me a franchise of time, a number of times, to do with what I thought God wanted me to do. And that was to accomplish things, not just talk big and Babylon like I am right now. So,
by the way, Becky Ottenberry from Louisiana said this is a great interview. So yeah, doing great. Last question of the night. The question is, what do you say you've kept your integrity and your faith through a road or politics, which really a lot of people fall. A lot of people, drop the faith ball. What do you say to someone who's is going, yeah, I need to keep the faith. I don't know. I hope that's clear. You ran the race. You've done well. I mean, you're still a spring chicken. You still have a lot ahead of you. But what do you say to people? Like, encourage someone with that.
yeah, so the battle being elected to office is, as I mentioned before, a lot of insecure people get elected, and therefore the election to office is the validation of them. There's something, and if people voting for you, or patting you on the head, or contributing money to your campaign, if that's your validation, then you're going to fail, right? So from your perspective, my validation was never the office I held. It was always something much more important and bigger. And that probably was realized because when I was elected to the assembly in 1988, 2 years later, I lost. So the only election I ever won, I lost 2 years later. 2 years after that, I ran again. And because of God's direction in my life, he put me in the right place. So then I was in line to be Speaker of the Assembly when the Republicans got a majority for 1 year in 1996. If I lost that second time, or that my reelection, I never would have been in that place. So being trusting in God and knowing that He's overseeing our path and our direction, and He's got a much better plan for us than the silly plans I crafted in my mind, and being faithful to that, and not thinking that office is the be all and end all, but be very faithful and clear that you're there to serve, and serve understanding that God has your footsteps planned. That's how I live my life during those elected offices, before and after.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Pringle, for your service, for your faith, and for what you do. And just want to thank you so much for really. This is a great interview. For you, it's easy, but we learned so much today. So I appreciate your time and your friendship. And stick around 1 second. I want to close the show and just say goodbye to you, if you don't mind.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that was educational, entertaining. Hopefully, this would encourage someone, a young person, to jump into running for politics and not being fearful, and taking the the advice that Mr. Pringle gave to us. And hopefully for some of you, we learn more about solutions for the housing, for the homelessness, for all that. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Join me tomorrow for the Live with Naz at 8:30 p.m. Pacific time. And please subscribe to this podcast. Thank you guys so much, and God bless you, and good night.